Okay guys, welcome back to another episode of Unobsessed. Today we thought we would do something really fun and invite you along to our grocery shop to navigate the chocolate aisle. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk through how we eat our favorite foods, yummy foods, without binging on them. So let's go! Okay, boys, everybody get ready. The coast is clear. Go, go, go. Go, go. Move, boy, move, move. Okay, guys, welcome to the chocolate aisle. This place can be pretty overwhelming. I'm just gonna put my walkie-talkie back because I don't know if you could tell, but it's actually fake. So, okay, just. Chocolate used to be one of my fear foods, and this is kind of strange standing here because once you find food freedom, it really loses its emotional charge. So like, this is nice, but it's not like awfully exciting for me because I let myself on a regular basis eat these foods now. So, Kenny, you want to join me for this? Yay!
Sure.
My husband's very tired, but he's going to join me. Okay, so what we're going to do, baby, is sometimes when we're in an aisle like this, it's very overwhelming because we have all these rules in our head about what we can and can't eat. Plus, it can be overwhelming because sometimes you feel like, oh, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out on something good. So what we're going to do, it sounds strange, we're going to close our eyes, and the only thing we're going to think about to like determine our decision is what we genuinely feel like. What we genuinely feel would like bring us pleasure. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to close our eyes, everybody.
Quiet.
Okay. Okay, so what do you feel like?
I think.
Just like what would just sound really good to you to eat right now?
Well, I'm not a big fan of chocolate, but I think I would eat Snickers.
Snickers?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good choice. One of my old fear foods was Reese's Pieces. So I'm gonna get some Reese's Pieces. And I'm also really craving just some plain chocolate. You cannot go wrong. So I'm gonna get this and some Reese's.
Okay.
And Jonathan, what do you feel like? The cameraman is also practicing intuitive eating. Hi. What do you feel like?
Did you try something that you haven't tried before?
Yeah. Do you guys have? Oh yeah. Do you guys have these ones in Brazil? Tony's?
No. I haven't seen them there. Yeah.
This one's my fave.
Oh, this one's looking pretty good. What is this?
These are Reese's Pieces, my favorite.
I think those ones are the best because they are tiny and then you can portion.
Oh,
even better.
okay.
You can have one of them.
Love it. Okay, guys, we have secured. Wait, I need my walkie-talkie for this part. Okay, soldiers, we have secured the goods. Now, go on out. Go, go, go. Hello, I hope that you enjoyed our grocery shop. I wanted to do an episode on how to eat highly palatable foods, aka our favorite foods, often processed, and not binge on them. I want to get down to the nitty gritty, dirty details of how to practically do this. Today I'm going to specifically show you a technique not to binge eat. Now there is an important difference between overeating and binge eating. This is something that I often hear people confuse. These two eating behaviors are very distinct, and it's important to know the difference between them because they both require different approaches when dealing with them. Overeating is when you eat past fullness. Now this might be because the food was really delicious, this might be because you were distracted when you were eating, or this can sometimes be when we're not in tune with our body's own signals of hunger and fullness. This is something that's very common. Most people overeat from time to time, but it's not always accompanied with a deep and lasting sense of shame. Binge eating is very different. Binge eating is when a person feels very out of control with their eating. It's usually accompanied by a sense of secrecy and a sense of urgency. The person feels like they urgently have to eat a large amount of food, and usually that amount of food is unusually large in a very brief period of time. This is very often accompanied by a deep and lasting sense of shame. To stop overeating, I used a technique called intuitive eating, or an approach called intuitive eating. I talked about this in our previous video, which I will link below. But intuitive eating has undeniable long-term results in preventing people from overeating. But today, I want to talk about the technique that I use to stop binge eating. In our second episode, I went into depth about the work of Katherine Hansen and how her book on the anatomy of the brain absolutely stopped me from binge eating. And I guess today, I just wanted to do like a practical demonstration of how I actually use this technique and the nuance of what it looks like. So let's start with some intuitive eating. I have some of the goods that we brought home here, plus some chocolate that we still have from Easter. So if I check in with my body right now, what sounds good to me? You know, this big one is really calling out to me. Do you know what it's reminding me of? Does anyone remember the chocolate game when they were little? The one where you roll the dice and if you get a certain number, you get in the middle and you eat? When I was little, that game gave me so much anxiety. But now I really want to play it again as an adult, as like a recovered adult. I think I would really enjoy it now. If you watched my previous episode, you remember that I like to put my food on a plate, so give me 1 second. I have my plate. I do like to put my food on a plate. As I mentioned in my last episode, this is a beautiful sign of self-respect. And remember, although it's counterintuitive, the more pleasure and enjoyment we get from our food, the less likely we are to overeat. And that's also why I have my tea, because a gal can't have chocolate without tea. Oh man, this actually is like, is there a trick? Is there Okay, so let's start with some intuitive eating. I'm not really super hungry right now. I'm just gonna have some for a bit of enjoyment. So I reckon I could go. Let's break some off here. Let's see what looks good to my stomach. I reckon this amount with some tea. Can you see it, Janita? You can see it. I reckon this amount looks really good to me. I'm also such a fan of chocolate that's refrigerated. Just the texture is so much better to me. So let's start with some intuitive eating. I really get pleasure out of my food when I dip my chocolate in my... Oh yeah, smell. Jonathan's always teasing me because I smell my food. Whenever I'm around him, he's always smelling his food. Yeah, so let's start with some intuitive eating. I do like to dip it in my tea, the chocolate. Does anyone else dance when food tastes really good? I can't help it. I'm so sorry. Chocolate? No. Chocolate? Okay. Guys, do you know, I have a birthmark. Is it there or there? I have a birthmark here. And I can't tell you the amount of times I'm at a social gathering eating with people and people tell me that I have chocolate there or Vegemite. And I tell them it's just a birthmark. But thank you. Let's imagine after you've had a few delicious bites of that chocolate or that highly palatable food that you get one of those annoyingly frustrating urges to binge. It feels very urgent, it feels very strong, it feels like it's not gonna go away until you binge. So, what do I do? Or at least, what did I do in recovery? I don't have to do this anymore because I just never get binge urgers. The first thing I do is not react. The moment that you react to a binge urge, it actually becomes more emotionally charged and it's harder for it to go away. So when you get that binge urge, just observe it, you don't have to react positively or negatively to it. The next thing you're going to do is you are going to see that binge urge as neurological junk coming from your lower brain. I went into detail about this in the previous video, but essentially those urges to binge are not necessary for you to survive and for you to keep living. So essentially that means that they are neurological junk. They're maladaptive, faulty messages that come from your lower brain. Once you view that urge as meaningless, not worthy of any attention from you, once you view it as not signaling anything important, it becomes easier to separate yourself from the urge. Now this, for me, in my recovery from binge eating, was probably the most important key, was to separate myself, my true self, from the urge to binge. And the way that I did this was to almost step outside of myself and see the urge to binge as not truly coming from me, as coming from my lower brain. So if you've had urges to binge before, or maybe to engage in any sort of addictive behavior, you would have had that experience where one part of you really desperately, urgently feels like it needs to engage in the behavior, and the other part of you just desperately does not want to do it. So that's an example of your higher brain and your lower brain, or in other words, your prefrontal cortex, which is a higher brain, or your survival brain. So when you get that urge to binge, I like to identify with my prefrontal cortex or my higher self and de-identify with the survival part of my brain. And as I said, it helps to almost step outside of yourself and look at these two separate brain functions and identify with your prefrontal cortex. When you do this, it actually makes not reacting to the binge urge much more easy. You don't have to engage with it. You don't actually even have to fight it. As soon as you fight it or try and make it go away, as I said, it can make it more emotionally charged and it can make it actually stronger. So don't even engage with it. You can just let it be there. And honestly, when you do this, the moment you separate yourself from the binge and you don't react to it, you will be surprised at how quickly that binge urge goes away. And finally, the final thing that I do is I get excited. Every time I would get a binge urge and I didn't act on it in recovery, I would get excited. And this actually made me recover quickly, because when you get excited about something, it actually strengthens that brain pathway. I mentioned this previously, but after the first time I was able to dismiss an urge to binge, I got really excited. And it sounds strange, but I used to look forward to the urge to binge because I knew that every time I got that urge and I didn't act on it, it was less likely to come back. Your brain can actually rapidly learn that the urges are neurological junk and don't need any more attention, and they will just go away. These went away so quickly for me once I started using this technique. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, and I can't wait to share more with you about eating disorder recovery and health without the obsession.